In case you hadn't caught on, we really like stealth games here at GamingBolt. It's a genre that has, through the decades, delivered some of the greatest games of all time, and we often find ourselves thinking about the games that stand head and shoulders even above others in that group. We've talked about what we feel are the greatest stealth games before, but it's been a while, so we figured it was time to come back with an updated list. And here, that's exactly what we've got: the 15 best stealth games of all time, 2020 edition. Note that we've kept entries in this feature to one game per series, so don't go expecting 7 Metal Gear Solid games, even though that sounds like a pretty great list. So with all that said, let's begin. Metal Gear Solid 5. Might as well kick off with a Metal Gear Solid game, right? And what a game it is! The Phantom Pain certainly has its issues, of that there is little doubt, and these issues do a lot to bring it down in its overall quality as a finished product, or as a satisfying entry in this series. But purely from a gameplay perspective, viewed purely on its merits of its stealth mechanics, the Phantom Pain is nearly flawless. Making use of a complex web of systems, Metal Gear Solid 5 delivers dynamic, reactive, and emergent stealth gameplay, the likes of which we haven't seen in many games. It is, plain and simple, a stealth masterclass. Thief 2. The Thief franchise is a classic and iconic one that many of us look back at fondly with great love and nostalgia, and for good reason. Because back in the day, at the peak of its powers, Thief was unlike anything else. The earlier games in the series were an absolute revelation, opening the industry's minds to the concept of stealth games in large open spaces, where everything is up to player choice, and where immaculate design and oodles of freedom came together in a perfect marriage. Dishonored 2. Thief may not be an active franchise anymore, and we're certainly not counting that forgettable 2014 game. But Arkane Studios' Dishonored games come very close to delivering much of what the older Thief titles were all about. Dishonored 2 builds upon that incredible mechanical strengths of its predecessor and kicks things up several notches in every way possible, with better level design, more tense combat and stealth encounters, many more exciting powers and abilities that can be used, and as such, an even greater sense of freedom in how you want to approach any given situation. Sly 2: Band of Thieves. Sly Cooper games generally tend to be much more easygoing in their nature as stealth games than many others, seeing as they spend just as much time on being enjoyable platformers and having jolly stories. But each of them can still make you feel like a super skilled badass thief. Sly 2: Band of Thieves is probably the series' pinnacle, though there's probably a case for pretty much every installment. And though the general lack of challenge does hurt its qualities to some extent, by and large this is still one of the most remarkable games in the venerated PS2 library. Invisible, Inc. Mixing the thrill of a stealth game with the deliberate and tactical nature of turn-based strategy titles, Klee Entertainment's Invisible, Inc. is one of the most unique and memorable stealth games you will ever play. It tells players exactly what they can do, and within the bounds of its rules, creates mechanically and systemically complex levels. Taking your time to figure out the best route forward in Invisible, Inc.'s hard but fair levels feels amazing, allowing the game to succeed not only as a strategy title, but as a stealth game as well. Splinter Cell: Chaos Theory. Once upon a time, Splinter Cell was among the very best and biggest stealth properties in the industry. The Ubisoft of present day seems to have little interest in delivering the kind of handcrafted, linear stealth experiences Splinter Cell games used to offer, which is a real shame, because at the peak of its powers, Splinter Cell was untouchable. And with Chaos Theory, it really was at the peak of its powers, with an engaging story and masterful stealth gameplay coming together in an absolute giant of the genre. Given how many excellent Splinter Cell games there are, deciding upon which one stands as the very best is never easy. But one way or another, our answer almost always ends up being Chaos Theory. It's just that good. AMNESIA: The Dark Descent. Horror and stealth often go hand in hand. Never has that statement been as true for any game as it is for AMNESIA: The Dark Descent. In fact, Frictional Games' psychological thriller is very much the game that truly pioneered and perfected that style of gameplay. Rather than using stealth to make players feel empowered and completely in control of the situation, Amnesia asked players to use it as a fallback in desperate situations. And in Amnesia, every situation was a desperate situation. The feeling that created was a powerful one. Scrambling to hide while unknown forces play nightmarish tricks with your mind was absolutely terrifying. The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us, the first one, was a solid stealth game, but one couldn't really praise the game for its mechanical depth and complexity. It could certainly be thrilling and tense, to say the very least, but it was little more than functional. In The Last of Us Part 2, stealth sees an impressive improvement. Combining Ellie's more mobile moveset with devilishly clever AI, The Last of Us Part 2 constantly puts players in tense, adrenaline-fueled stealth sequences, all of which take place in spectacular and intricately designed areas that are all purpose-built to leverage the game's many improvements over its predecessor. It's not an out-and-out stealth game, sure, it's very much Naughty Dog's own cinematic take on stealth, but it still ranks as one of the best games this genre has delivered in years. Mark of the Ninja. Klee Entertainment have a mastery over the stealth genre the way very few developers do. We've already spoken about Invisible, Inc., but perhaps a game that deserves even more credit is one of their earlier releases, Mark of the Ninja. As a side-scrolling action title, Mark of the Ninja is a more conventional experience than Invisible, Inc. and its turn-based stealth tactics, but it is also the closest a game can get to mechanical perfection. Every single one of its stealth scenarios clearly conveys everything the player needs to know to live out their fantasy of being a badass ninja, and using your arsenal of tools and the inherent darkness to your advantage, that's exactly what this game makes you feel like. A Plague Tale: Innocence. A Plague Tale: Innocence proves that you don't need a big budget and a massive development team to develop a memorable game. Asobo Studios' 2019 game is an indie title at heart, but proudly shows its polish and production qualities that can stand toe-to-toe with even the biggest blockbuster releases out there. In terms of gameplay, it doesn't break any new ground and mostly relies on a few key mechanics, but it constantly makes use of them in fun and interesting ways, so that you never feel like you're bored. Add to that an excellent story and two endearing main characters, and what you have is a real gem of a game. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. The Deus Ex series has always been known for being one of the very first to truly embrace the immersive sim genre. And though Deus Ex: Mankind Divided had its fair share of issues, it did not falter even slightly when it came to gameplay. Stealth in Mankind Divided takes the incredible foundations of Human Revolution and polishes them even further. The AI is smarter, the level design more intricate, there are many more abilities and powers to use, and the freedom of choice players have in how they want to approach each situation is ratcheted up to even greater heights than ever before. We really do hope Deus Ex comes back sooner rather than later, because Mankind Divided is ample proof of the excellent gameplay experiences this series can craft. Desperados 3. Mimimi Games has already established themselves as accomplished developers in the real-time tactics stealth space with Shadow Tactics: Blades of the Shogun. But with the recently released Desperados 3, they've touched new heights. On paper, the mechanics Desperados 3 employs are simple, but when all of the game's systems interact with each other, they create some of the most complex stealth puzzle boxes we've ever seen, and getting through each of them feels incredibly satisfying. Not only is using the unique abilities of each character to silently dispatch enemies a ton of fun, the game also takes a page from Hitman's book by giving players plenty of choices in how to go about tackling its missions. Not to the same degree, of course, but it does it really well. Batman: Arkham Asylum. That the Arkham games make you feel like Batman is a meme at this point. But you know what? It's true. They really do. And the excellent stealth is hugely responsible for that. Arkham Asylum puts more focus on stealth than its open-world successors, and it's stronger for it. Perching on top of vantage points and silently dispatching enemies one by one using Batman's wide assortment of tools and striking visible fear into the hearts of those enemies feels empowering and incredibly gratifying. Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation is yet another example of the horror and stealth genres being deeply intertwined. And what an example it is. The Creative Assembly's first-person horror game is a masterclass in both elements, and constantly uses them in perfect harmony to deliver one of the most tense games we've ever played. forcing players to constantly stay on the move while ensuring that they're not spotted by the terrifying xenomorph. Alien Isolation makes you feel like every next step could be your last. The sections where it focuses on combats or androids are decidedly less memorable, sure, but in the grand scheme of things, those parts feel like insignificant flaws in an otherwise incredible game. Hitman 2. Perhaps the greatest realization there has ever been of the sandbox social stealth style. In Hitman 2, Agent 47 can be as resourceful, as skilled, and as sneaky as you want him to be. Every level is a massive sandbox that is full of infinite possibilities, with dozens upon dozens of possible ways to take out even the most insignificant target. This is the epitome of not just emergent stealth, but also masterful level design, while also being a great example of how to use them both in perfect harmony to create a truly unforgettable experience. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.